Question: why does history always align so seamlessly with the message of the Hebrew Bible? The answer can be summed up in one statement. History has the same author as the Torah. Today, on the Exodus Project, we are going to delve into a page of that history which is often overlooked. This is what the media is not telling you.
Everyone, this is another episode of the Exodus Project. I am joined with my good friend Rabbi Stuart Federow, and today we are going to kind of address some ignorant commenters, some ignorant comments we've received on the channel about supporting apartheid, and just a lot of people that are ignorant to what really happened historically in the Middle East. We're just going to break it down. But before we get started, hit that subscribe button, turn on the notifications, give the Rabbi and I a big thumbs up, check the description for his book, Judaism and Christianity at Contrast, available in a plethora of languages.
Spanish and Portuguese so far.
Also, my book is in there as well, English and Spanish. English and Portuguese, check that out. And I think the Rabbi has some news on a potential hard copy workbook to go along with Learn Hebrew in 1 hour.
Yes, go to Hebrew Jumpstart on YouTube. Go to YouTube, do a search for Hebrew Jumpstart, and you'll be taken to my video, Learn How to Read Hebrew in 1 hour. And plenty of people worldwide, nationwide have done that. They've learned, literally, after going through this for 1 hour, they're not translating, not understanding, but the first step towards that is to be able to pronounce the words.
Sure,
when you see it, yes. So it teaches them how to pronounce all the consonants and vowels.
Awesome.
In 1 hour.
Awesome.
So,
yeah. And yeah, you mentioned a workbook coming out, so keep us updated on timeline for that, and I'm sure that will be an equally helpful resource. Yeah,
I hope so. Yep.
So I'm going to put an image up on the screen, Rabbi, and
go ahead.
We can kind of discuss the false narrative and the true one, and then we can continue on deeper into the history of these things.
Right.
So I'm just going to bring this up, and as everyone can see in the picture, hope you can see that okay. Can you see that?
Right.
On the top it says false, and on the bottom it says true.
And
so
on the
take
top,
it away.
And on the top, you have a picture of the promised land. Okay, the area of the world we call Israel. Mm-hmm. And what they say the narrative is that you had Palestine as an existing entity, which slowly got eaten away and dissolved and replaced by the state of Israel, the country of Israel.
Right. And that it was completely the UN's doing, right?
Right. So here we have, in 1946, it was all Palestine, but the UN plan in 47 came in and established Israel in these little white areas. And then Israel slowly took over the green area, which was the old Palestine. And nothing could be further from the truth. But hey, don't let facts interfere with your hate.
Sure.
The bottom also talks about how it was originally a mandate of Britain And what is a mandate? It means that a country is given control of the land. They
Yeah.
have the mandate, they have permission, they have the mandate to run the area.
Yep.
So you have the British Mandate of Palestine in 1920, the League of Nations, which is the precursor to the United Nations, set it up so you've got the western part, which is Jewish Palestine, and the green part, which is the Arab Palestine.
Right.
And notice that what is to the east of Israel, of the Promised Land, okay, is the country of Jordan and Transjordan.
Yep.
Okay, and the southern part there, by the way, would be Saudi Arabia.
Sure. And
Okay.
if I could make
Southern border.
if I could make one interjection, we see from this that there's really no coincidence why the Palestinian flag as we have it today is really just the Jordanian flag. I mean,
Right.
let's consider that. People don't talk about that type of stuff enough, you know? And we're going to see as we're going to see as we progress through this history lesson, as you just demonstrated right there, the whole eastern half of the mandate, according to the League of Nations, was designated as Arab Palestine.
Right. And they were supposed to have that. But look, you can see that line between the yellow and the green, between what they call Jewish Palestine, with Jerusalem in its middle, more or less, and then the green part. You can see that the border there is the Jordan River.
Yep.
Okay, which would include the Dead Sea area.
The Kinneret in the center.
Kinneret, okay. And notice that to the west, it's yellow. To the right, it's green of that line.
Sure.
Then take a look at map number 3. You have the green part, which is Jordan, and you have the white part, which is Israel, and you have what is the Gaza Strip is labeled as Egypt.
Right, which if I remember correctly, Egypt actually purchased that unlawfully.
Well, yeah, they came to control it. But the interesting part is where the green part in third map, which is 1949, 1967, you got the green part, which is Jordan.
Yeah.
Why is that Jordan? Why is that green? Why is it called the West Bank? Originally, it was given to Israel.
And as you can see, the Arab Palestine, or Jordan, as it's called, the Transjordan portion, is actually encroaching into the what's yellow on the left map there.
Right. How did they come by that? In 1948, Jordan invaded Israel and took it over. It's called, I don't know, colonialism?
Yeah, the 1948 war. Yeah.
Okay, the 1948 war, Israel lost a part of what was supposed to be Jewish.
Yep.
Okay, and then you had a wide variety of wars, of attacks between 48 and 67. And in 67, you had the 67 Six-Day War.
Yep.
And Israel took back what had been taken from them in 48.
Yep.
But, and here to me is the most important part of the establishment of the state of Israel that everybody wants to ignore. And notice that they do that with these maps too. On the bottom, it says true, and it points to the British Mandate of Palestine in 1920. And they say the League of Nations, this is how they divided it. Where does that come from? who gave permission to United Nations to divide it up in any way, shape, or form that they did? And that's the history of this that is completely missing by everybody.
Right.
So, Steve, in 1940, 46, 47, I don't remember the exact year, Germany was divided up into East Germany and West Germany. And the capital of Germany, which was Berlin, was divided up into East Berlin and West Berlin.
Yep.
Why was it divided up? Who gave anybody permission to divide up Germany into an East and West Germany and an East and West Berlin?
Well, when you lose, you don't have much of a choice.
Exactly. people forget that Germany lost World War One. I'm sorry, World War Two.
Well, they lost both, but yeah.
Well, yes, that's true too, but that's important. That's vitally important.
Well, and further, you just mentioned about World War One. Had Germany and the Ottomans and so on not lost World War One, you wouldn't have the British Mandate of Palestine either.
But that's what they don't realize.
Right.
Who gave England a mandate? Who gave France a mandate over Syria? Where did this come from? And people will start out by saying, well, it's the Jewish homeland. Okay, the Jews are indigenous. Okay, let's pretend that that is totally untrue. Let's pretend that it's irrelevant. So don't even think about the land of Israel being the Jewish homeland. Okay, forget that God promised us that land repeatedly in the Hebrew scriptures, in the Bible.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, forget that the Jews have always lived on that land uninterrupted. Jews have had a presence on the promised land uninterrupted for thousands of years.
Right.
Okay, ignore the fact that every archaeological dig after every archaeological dig exposes layer upon layer of Jewish artifacts going back millennia.
Yep.
When Spain in 1492, Columbus sailed the ocean blue, and the Western Hemisphere was discovered by the East. Okay, when Spain came over to the newfound land, did they find artifacts of Spain?
Of course not.
Were there pieces of Spain's money found in lower layers in the dirt when they came over? No. Why? Because they'd never been here before.
Right.
Because Spain was not indigenous to the land.
Mm-hmm.
But in archaeological dig after archaeological dig, there's layer upon layer of Jewish artifacts that go back thousands of years.
Yep.
Whether it's some inscription that talks about King David, or an inscription by a Mesopotamian king that says, "We are victorious and Israel is no more."
I think it was a year and a half ago, they found a lead tablet on Har Eval, Mount Ebal, that dates to the days of Joshua. It had Hebrew on it.
It wouldn't surprise me, because the Jews are in fact indigenous to the land.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so forget all that. Forget about indigeneity. Forget about Jews having been there and having an uninterrupted presence on that land over thousands of years. What people forget goes back to World War I.
Yep.
The Ottoman Empire went to war against the Allied forces in World War I, and the Ottoman Empire lost.
You know that most people don't even realize that the Ottoman Empire fought in World War I?
No, they don't. Okay, and it got subsumed under the country called Turkey, but it was entire Ottoman. I'm sorry, it was an entire empire that was controlled out of Turkey.
Sure,
but they lost. And as you just said, if I go to war against you and I lose, my government gets completely dissolved, and my land, you as the winner of the war, now own.
Right.
And it's that simple, and that is called international law. Why do they have a law like that? To make it detrimental to people who keep wanting to go to war.
Right.
If you keep going to war and losing, you're going to keep losing your land.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, so who won World War I? Britain, France, Italy, and Japan. Notice I didn't use the United States. Okay, the United States entered World War I, but we didn't have a whole lot to do with it.
Right.
So after World War I, Britain, France, Italy, and Japan met at San Remo, Italy in 1920.
Here, I'll give you the sharing abilities.
Okay, thank you. Okay. So in 1920, the winners of World War I met in San Remo, Italy, and they divided up their newly acquired land that they had acquired by winning World War I. All according to international law.
Right.
Okay. The same international law that we just discussed that divided up to Germany and created an East Germany and West Germany and an East Berlin and a West Berlin is the same international law.
Mm-hmm.
The winners of World War One created 3 areas to be governed by the winners that they called a mandate. Mandate means you have permission to control this land. We're letting you be the controller because you were part of our group that won World War One.
Right.
One such mandate was called the Mandate of Palestine, and it was created from the moment it was created by the winners of World War One for the Jews to reestablish the Jewish state.
Mm-hmm.
However, and it must be noted, you have to make note of this, that when the winners of World War One created the mandate known as Palestine for the Jews, they said all those non-Jews living there will still become citizens of this new state, and you can do nothing that's detrimental to the rights of the non-Jews already living there.
Right.
Which is why, from the beginning, Arabs, Muslims, Christians all had rights as citizens of the state of Israel if they were already living there at the time the state of Israel the mandate of Israel was established.
Right.
So the winners of World War One set up England to be the governing body of the mandate called Palestine, with the explicit purpose of preparing to hand over that land to the Jews. And all of this was formally approved by the League of Nations. France and other countries that made up the winners of World War I were giving mandates for other territories that used to be part of the Ottoman Empire. And those mandates, believe it or not, were called the Mandate of Syria
Mm-hmm.
and the Mandate of Mesopotamia, which really basically meant Turkey.
Oh, wow.
Okay. But nobody talks about the mandate that created Syria. Nobody talks about the mandates that created other Muslim Arab countries in the Mideast.
Right.
By the winners of World War I, the same way they created what is called Israel. Now, there are many people who want to say the following, okay, that yes, the Jews once had a country in the land promised to them by God. It was called Israel. But ancient Israel was overthrown by Assyria in the north. It was overthrown by Babylon in the south.
Mm-hmm.
And then the land was further taken over by Persia, then by Greece,
mm-hmm.
then by Rome,
right,
and then, by the way, by the Ottoman Empire.
Sure.
And
mm-hmm.
people will say that the fact that the Jewish nation of Israel was overthrown, well, might makes right. And because the nation of Israel was overthrown by the mightier nations of Assyria, Babylon, Persia, Greece, Rome, Ottoman, they lost their right. Okay? Because they're saying might makes right, and therefore, yes, they were indigenous back then, but they lost their right because of the might of the winners of subsequent battles against the promised land of Israel.
Right.
Okay, that's fine. If they want to say that, that's fine. If might makes right, then the Ottoman Empire lost its right to the land because of the might of the Allied forces.
Brilliant point. Sure.
Okay. If might makes right, then the Ottoman Empire lost its right to the promised land because of the might of the Allied forces of World War I that won World War I.
Right.
All according to international law and fully approved of by over 50 countries in the League of Nations.
Right.
The might of the Allied forces gave them the right to give that land to the Jews.
Yep. And ultimately, Rabbi, who has all might?
Well, God.
And if he says that I'm going to bring you back.
Right, but
no.
Muslims aren't going to accept that, but they have to accept international law.
That's true.
You know, Christians want to say that the Jews lost everything because they didn't believe in their Jesus. Okay. Hey, they can say what they want.
Mm-hmm.
You can't argue with the Remo Conference of 1920.
That's true.
All accepted and approved by the League of Nations. And it's the League of Nations, which became the United Nations,
mm-hmm.
who then took the mandate that's a confusing word. Who took the rules set up by the winners of World War I and followed suit with what the winners of World War I wanted.
Right.
So
right.
it's not Jewish colonialism. Okay, it's not just some random United Nations who all of a sudden decided to give the land to the people of it, to the Jews. It's international law that says, hey, don't go to war unless you're ready to lose your land.
That's very brilliant point. It is.
And that's the most important point that people forget.
Mm-hmm.
If you go to war and you lose your land. The winners of World War I won World War I, took their newly acquired land, which had been the Ottoman Empire, and they decided, according to international law, to give it back to the Jews.
Right.
All according to international law and approved of by the League of Nations. Okay, now, what I want you to see is this. Let me do this. Screen share. And I think it's right here. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
All right.
Mm-hmm.
This is Encyclopedia Britannica. So go look it up under Britannica.com. And if they have the ability there, do a search called Conference of San Remo. The Conference of San Remo, April 16th to April 26, 1920, was an international meeting convened at San Remo on the Italian Riviera to decide the future of the former territories of the Ottoman Turkish Empire, one of the defeated Central Powers in World War I. It was attended by the prime ministers of Great Britain, France, and Italy, and representatives of Japan, Greece, and Belgium. Please notice it doesn't say anything about the United States.
Of course. Right.
The conference approved the final framework of a peace treaty with Turkey, which was later signed at Sèvres on August 10th, 1920. The Treaty of Sèvres abolished the Ottoman Empire, obliged Turkey to renounce all rights over Arab, Asia, and North Africa, and provided for an independent Armenia, for an autonomous Kurdistan, and for a Greek presence in eastern Thrace and on the Anatolian west coast, as well as Greek control over the Aegean Islands commanding the Dardanelles. Notice what it says. Obliged Turkey to renounce all rights over Arab Asia.
Wow. And if people, just another history lesson, if people are unaware, that even sounds like for the Greek people, they gave back indigenous areas, because Thrace, which is in modern day Bulgaria, was also relatively Greek in culture and origin. So
exactly, they didn't do this just for the Jews. And the same process that gave rise to the state of Israel also gave rise to the existence of modern Arab Muslim countries that did not exist beforehand.
And the Anatolian west coast and the Aegean Islands, clearly Greek. Anatolian west coast, that's the west coast of Turkey. That's where Troy would have been.
Right.
So
now, by the way, just to be honest here, just to be clear, okay, the renunciation of the rights over Arab Asia, North Africa, okay, that went through. But with wheeling and dealing in subsequent months, subsequent years, past 1920, past the April 19th to 26th of 1920, okay, some of this stuff about Armenia, Kurdistan, the Greek presence of Thrace was overturned.
I'm just saying, though, that the point was kind of to give back a lot of ancient indigenous areas.
Exactly. All according to international law, all approved of by the League of Nations that became the United Nations.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not that all of a sudden, like we had at that map, where the League of Nations decided to give it, okay, where England, okay, the United Kingdom was given the mandate.
Right.
There's a whole history that allowed them to have the mandate, and that's what's being ignored. And all you have to do is do a web search, a Google search on San Remo Conference. Go Conference of San Remo Conference of 1921. You got wikipedia.org, you've got Britannica.com, which is where this comes from. You've got jewishvirtuallibrary.org. Those are three quick references.
Sure.
Okay. And even though they'll say, "Oh, Jewish, it's got it," that's prejudice, and it's not going to be. Wikipedia and Britannica are going to be very independent.
Oh, definitely.
Okay, and they're going to
Britannica's
give
a
you
great
the
resource too, for sure.
and you're going to get the true history of what happened. That happens with World War One, not just because England decides to give it to the Jews.
Sure.
There's a
friend of mine and I were discussing this similar topic, and he made a very brilliant point. He said a lot of these people who are a lot of these people who are on the left-leaning side of things nowadays, I don't want to get too political, but that seems to be where a lot of the modern anti-Semitism and criticism is coming from.
Yeah.
He said a lot of these people, it's almost like they think the map always looked the way it looks now.
Right.
And they also
like the top part of the one you showed.
Exactly. Right. But we just demonstrated regarding like Thrace and stuff. Try and find Thrace on a map. You know what I mean? Borders were so different in ancient times and even 100 years ago.
Right.
And he also made a brilliant point when he said that these people also think they can't think of history outside of their own lifetime.
Right.
And
exactly true.
These things are so important, and these people almost have a historical nearsightedness that if it didn't happen in their lifetime, then it didn't happen.
See, they don't want to know the truth. They won't study the truth. They won't study history. They'd rather see. This is the thing. They want to believe the worst that they can believe about Israel and about the Jews. Right. So the slightest little thing that comes along, they'll grab on it and say, apartheid. Do you know what people who actually lived in South Africa, the Black community who actually lived under apartheid, when they hear what goes on in Israel as being apartheid, they are so upset and angry because it diminishes what actually apartheid
happened to them. Yeah, exactly.
And what actually happened to them.
So true.
Right. Apartheid. So if they've got a Palestinian Arab Muslim on the Supreme Court of Israel under apartheid, how did that happen? If they go to a hospital and they've got Arab Muslim patients, Arab Christian patients in the middle, and Jewish patients all mingled together in the same hospital with the same doctors, with the same medical staff, how under apartheid could that possibly happen? They throw around these words of hate because they want to hate, they choose to hate, and the facts are irrelevant to them. So there'll be plenty of people who will see this video and it won't sway them one bit. But the truth of the matter
but at least the true history is out there. That's the point.
If they're willing to look for it, they can find it. And I would start with the San Remo Conference of 1920.
Well, let's apply that to every other video on this channel regarding Judaism versus Christianity, etc. The facts are on the table. What you do with them is up to you.
Absolutely.
You know, we have over 100 and some videos on this channel, and if you've gone through the catalog and watched them all and still come to that same
Christian conclusion,
then it's no different than what you'll probably get in this video. And it's self-imposed, willful ignorance.
Right. And you can't fight that.
You can't fight that. You can't. Only the people who are honest and looking for the truth are the ones that are going to find it.
I got to tell you, personally, I'm a little tired of the fight. I'm tired of having to explain and self-defend and everything else. People who said to me when they find out that I'm a rabbi, well, what do you think about, free Palestine? What do you think of Israel? Well, let me tell you, I'm just going to pick up my little red phone that connects directly to the Prime Minister of Israel, and I'll tell him what he needs to start doing. I mean, it's like going up to somebody who is from Ireland, whose ancestors are from Ireland. 200 years ago, they were from Ireland.
Right.
And asking them to justify the Irish Republican Army that bombed people in England.
Right.
Like they had something to do with it, like they're responsible. And the only reason why they come up to Jews who are not Israelis and have us try to defend what Israel is doing is called anti-Semitic racism.
Mm-hmm.
Why do I become responsible?
Certainly.
I don't vote there. I'm not a citizen there. I will defend it. I will support it. I will not condemn it. Okay. I will, to the contrary, I will elevate it and promote it. Okay. But I'm not responsible for it.
Of course. Yeah.
At any rate, this is the information that they need to know.
Yes.
Okay. And don't.
So I tell you what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to link Britannica San Remo Conference link in the description of this video.
Good.
So you have no excuse not to follow the link, right? It's going to be right here.
And don't even believe us. Do your own Google search,
yeah,
San Remo Conference of 1920, and you'll see that everything we're saying is true. And
yes,
you don't want to lose your land, don't make war.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
That's it.
Yeah, brilliant. Great little history lesson there.
Right.
Rabbi. And I hope that image kind of cleared some things up too, because we're not just making this stuff up. No,
we're not.
But one thing I must ask is if you're going to come on the channel and you're going to comment that people, you expect better of us, that we are supporting an apartheid, this kind of thing. If I can tell you haven't actually watched the video, because the prior video that a lot of these comments were on, we weren't even talking about the modern state of Israel. We were talking about the people of Israel have an everlasting covenant and promise from God that they will always exist.
Right.
We weren't even talking about the modern state of Israel. So I could tell people are coming onto the channel, seeing the title of the video, saying, oh, that must mean that they think that the modern state of Israel will kill all the Palestinians. That's not what we're talking about. Right? So actually watch the video and get the information and then formulate an opinion. Right? Having an opinion before.
I'm sure there'll be comments to this video.
I'm sure.
From people who have no earthly idea what we're even talking about, but they'll attack anyway. Right. That's all they can do.
Their highest level of history education was 3rd grade, and they slept.
Oh no, Steve, I disagree. I think they could be college educated. But they don't know what they don't know, and they're not willing to learn about what they don't know. And in some areas, they're just plain ignorant.
Sure.
But they don't want to lose their ignorance.
I really, and we can sign off after this. I just really want to impress on everyone how important learning history is. I mean, I've been a really big history buff since I was a kid. I've always loved studying history. My mom used to always tell me other kids would be watching cartoons and I'd have on like the History Channel as a 7-year-old boy. And my mom's like, how can you watch this stuff? I was always just so enamored with it, because
that's why you know it better.
Yeah.
That's why you can talk about it.
Because history is just so interesting. Everyone hears that little parable. You won't know where you're going unless you see where you came from, something like that.
And if you don't know the history, you're doomed to repeat it.
Exactly right. And I've just always been very obsessed with learning history, multiple points of view in history, etc. So I don't want to say I'm a college professor in world history or anything, but I feel like I'm pretty conversant in history.
Yeah, I think you definitely are.
And
you knew what Thrace was. Most people don't.
Right. So please, people, don't take our word for it.
Do your own study.
Do your own research.
For anything we talk about. I don't care what it's about.
Of course.
Yeah. All right.
Yeah. But I actually I put a cool intro I made for our you might have seen the post. I made a post on Facebook, and it was some pretty horrible anti-Semitic things, very 1930s Germany looking, that are going on in France right now. And I made a post, and I said, why is it always that history aligns so seamlessly with the Hebrew Bible? And I said, it's because they both have the same author.
And you know something? Now you understand the true origins of anti-Semitism.
Yes.
Because ultimately, in the deepest, darkest reaches of their hearts and souls, Christians and Muslims know that the Jews and that Judaism are right.
Yeah.
And they resent us for it.
Yeah.
And they each think they're from God, and they each think they have the truth, which means that the Jews have to be failing.
Right.
Because if they've got the truth and we don't, we should be failing, but we're not.
Yeah, they can't admit.
Therefore, they have to make us fail to validate their religions.
Yep.
Okay. And that to me is the real roots of anti-Semitism. And it can take different shapes and different expressions, but the bottom line, they know we're right and they resent us for it. And the cognitive dissonance that comes when Jews individually or collectively, or the state of Israel, which, as we said, can go into existence in a minute and can go out of existence in a minute.
Right.
Okay. When any of that succeeds, they have to stamp it down because it provides cognitive dissonance to what they think is their truth. And that's the real truth. That's where anti-Semitism originates from. I am more and more convinced since October 7th.
Of course. Brilliant point. Brilliant point. And yeah. well, Rabbi, I really enjoyed that, man. I really enjoyed
Always do.
Just delving into some history with you and just things that people nowadays they just don't know, and it's sad.
And the San Remo Conference of 1920 is so vital to understand why did the United Kingdom become the mandate for the Promised Land? Why did the League of Nations and the United Nations grant them what they were doing? Because everything that led up to the San Remo Conference, the losing the war of World War I by the Ottoman Empire, is what gave all this permission to happen.
Sure.
And you had precedents going back to the late 1800s about maybe the Jews should be able to go back to their promised land.
Right.
But it couldn't come into existence until World War I was over and the Ottoman Empire had lost.
Right. Yeah.
Nobody knows the history, as
Nope.
we just said.
Yeah. But all right, everybody.
Yep.
Rabbi Stuart Federow, like we said, check out his book in the description. Sure he'll appreciate it. His Hebrew Jumpstart also down there. Please follow that link.
When the workbook comes out, buy it, please.
Yeah. And I will certainly link that as well when it's available. So keep us updated.
Yep.
But yeah, until next time, everyone, this was the Exodus Project. I'm Steve Eisenhower, Rabbi Stuart Federow, and we'll see you next time.